Hello there, namaste. So this is Chanakya, ancient India's political mastermind. I guess it's a person who helped India. And yeah.
In 325 BCE, as Alexander retreated from India, an ambitious Indian scholar watched the proceedings with great interest. This scholar...
Yeah, I like that. I like that because, yeah, Alexander the Great, when he was chased out, it's fascinating to know just how many big empires were chased out of India.
Scholar, Chanakya, had set his eyes on the throne of the hated king of the Nandas. How convenient that Alexander's invasion had shaken up the political landscape. By 323 BCE, Chanakya had secured enough funds to hire a Greek mercenary army. Conquest was on the horizon. But Chanakya did not intend the throne for himself. Instead, he planned to depose Dhanananda and place his own puppet claimant on the throne.
See, that's it. Because, okay, Japan has always known it for the most part. They've been the ones who... They are the only... monarch in the world that has had the same ruler throughout time. Why? Because the emperor never had power. It was never the emperor. They wanted to be the shogun. They wanted to be the one who controlled the power. They wanted to be the one who was in charge over the emperor. Because if the emperor gave them the favor, then they are the blessed one. They are the ones that get to control the armies. They are the ones that are truly in charge. It's so this person knew where the real power stands. You have to be the one that's whispering into the king's ear. You have to be the one that literally is the one behind the curtain. You are the Wizard of Oz. The one behind the curtain, hiding behind the mask, telling the world what you want them to hear. And everyone just has to be fearful of it.
Chandragupta Maurya. In the end, Chanakya succeeded beyond his wildest dreams. It was his hand that puppeteered the growth of the Mauryan Empire, the largest native power in Indian history. And in Chanakya's famous treatise, Arthashastra, he codified a pragmatic system of statecraft, a Machiavellian system that would be adopted throughout India and Southeast Asia. This is his story. Chanakya was born to a scholarly Jain family sometime in the 4th century BCE. From there, accounts differ. The Jain account notes that he was from Dramala, an area that today encompasses the southern states of India. However, recent linguistic evidence has led some historians to believe that Chanakya originated from the western coast. In most accounts, Chanakya is described as having broken teeth, and this is tied to his destiny as the power behind the throne. Broken-toothed Chanakya was soon married off to a traditional Brahmin lady. Surprise, surprise, his in-laws suddenly started fussing. For Chanakya was educated, yes, but he was poor, so Chanakya headed north seeking opportunity, to Patliputra, capital of the prosperous Nanda Empire. An opportunity there.
I like it. He literally had nothing and became the power behind the throne. A man who truly knew where true power lies is the one who, if you can have a puppet king, you have the power. If you're the one who puppeteers the king, the issue with having a puppet king, it has to be the right kind of puppet. The issue with having a puppet king is, well, others can start influencing the puppet.
Chanakya found work as a courtly advisor and administrator for the king, Dhanananda. However, at some point, Chanakya was profoundly insulted by the king or lost his job. Chanakya swore revenge. He would topple the dynasty and help establish a new one on the ashes. But first, he would need a claimant with which he could challenge Dhanananda. How convenient that in the forest near the capital, Chanakya found a descendant of the original Nanda dynasty, Chandragupta. But to understand the value of Chandragupta to Chanakya, we have to understand Dhanananda's story. See, Dhanananda was descended from a low-born barber who was the favorite plaything of a previous queen. Sensing an opportunity, the barber, who had ingratiated himself with certain court officials, instigated a coup. Afterwards, he took the queen's children in as their guardian and one by one had them killed too. Dhanananda was a descendant of the barber and this queen. The record makes it clear that his low birth and the violent, unjustified nature of his ancestors' coup made him an easy target for hatred, worsened by high taxes and
The barber's child became the... Oh, whoa. Now that's a story right there. I mean, sure, he was evil and took the lives of other children, and the mother apparently didn't bat an eye on it, but still, that's...
an
Gosh.
oppressive administration. In fact, Porus told Alexander that Dhanananda was so widely despised that he could have captured the Nanda Empire were he to continue deeper into India. This is where Chandragupta comes in. From the historical record, it appears that Chandragupta could have been the son of a lesser wife of an older Nanda king. In other words, he had a connection to the Nanda dynasty before the coup. In order to escape the violence of the coup, Chandragupta and his mother went to the forest to live in obscurity. According to the legends, Chanakya ventured into the forest and found Chandragupta as a child. He supposedly knew that Chandragupta was the rightful heir, for the boy was playing king with his friends. Chanakya became Chandragupta's guardian. Together, they left for Takshila.
Okay, so was he truly... Because that's the thing. A lot of the stuff, you write your own papers to create a fake genealogy to have your puppet become king. I mean, that's happened throughout time. You create papers. What was it in the oh crap, Braveheart, the whole thing when Scotland's trying to become free from the British, everyone was arguing for the throne of who's going to lead Scotland. It was like, oh, I have papers. No, your papers are fake, because it's all drawn. There's all handwritten. It's like, what proof is there truly?
Takshila was a frontier city in the subcontinent and a vibrant center of learning and trade. And after Alexander's retreat from India, the city was teeming with disaffected Greeks and Persians. It was Takshila where Chanakya would change his fortunes and build the foundation of his imperial legacy. While in Takshila, Chanakya is believed to have taught at the prestigious Takshila University and personally tutored Chandragupta, developing him into a polished, kingly figure. But Chanakya did not dither. In Takshila, he actively sought allies to help him take down Dhanananda and establish a new empire. According to various records, Chanakya came into a great deal of wealth very suddenly. Most of the records attribute this to some sort of fantastical magic power. In reality, however, it's likely that Chanakya obtained war loans from merchant guilds. Obtaining war loans was common in India. Money in hand, Chanakya first secured the allegiance of Greek mercenaries in Takshila, and then he struck a deal with the Himalayan king, Parvataka. To sweeten the deal, he offered Parvataka half the empire once they succeeded in toppling it. Now backed by a large army of mercenaries and partnered kings, Chanakya and his allies conquered a large chunk of the northwest and looked to the empire of the Nandas next. Beyond Takshila, conquest would not be easy. According to Hindu and Jain sources, the war campaign against the Nandas was bitterly fought because the Nandas had a powerful and well-trained army. Chanakya and his allies launched a direct attack on Patliputra. This was a bold move, but Chanakya's gamble did not pay off. The attack failed and the allied forces were forced to retreat. Battered and bruised, they soon realized that they should have first secured a more favorable position on the periphery of the empire, slowly deconstructing the Nandas piece by piece. With a new strategy in place, the allied forces invaded the border provinces of the Nandas. As the allied forces took these provinces, they strengthened their position, filled their garrisons, and induced minor lords into joining their cause. Finally, the allied forces sieged Patliputra once more. This time, they were successful. As per usual, accounts differ. Some say that Chanakya and his allies killed Dhanananda, while others say that they spared the old king but forced him into exile. Chandragupta now sat.
Oh my gosh, the things need to be written down. It'd be so much easier to know what's going on if it's all written down. Oh well.
On the throne in Patliputra, having toppled the Nanda dynasty and having founded a new imperial dynasty, the Mauryas. The situation was not yet ideal, however. He would have to share this conquest with the Himalayan king Parvataka, his most important ally. Parvataka suddenly fell sick with poison and died. Many accounts attribute this poisoning to Chanakya, who is believed to have blamed some of his own allies as part of a larger scheme. With Chanakya advising him as prime minister, Chandragupta established an expansive and prosperous empire. In 2 short generations, it would grow into the largest native empire in Indian history, fueled by the instability of North India at the time. In the wake of Alexander the Great's invasion, he'd left much of northwest India under the control of semi-independent Greek satraps. These satraps faced the constant threat of rebellion. After all, many local lords seethed at the fact that their position had been usurped by distant foreigners. Chandragupta and Chanakya exploited this vulnerability. They made extensive use of guerrilla tactics, working with hill tribes and other groups to cause instability in the Greek satraps. Soon enough, the expanding Mauryan Empire bordered the eastern flank of the largest post-Alexander Greek kingdom, that of Seleucus Nicator. War was inevitable. In 305 BCE, the Seleucids attempted an invasion of the subcontinent. The Mauryans were drawn into conflict and soundly defeated the invading Greeks. Tired of the border tensions, the 2 powers agreed to a peace treaty. Seleucus would receive 500 war elephants, while Chandragupta would be given the remaining Greek territories in India. To strengthen the peace, Seleucus also gave away his daughter, Helena, to Chandragupta in marriage. Now that their attention could be turned elsewhere, the Mauryans looked to the east and south. Until Chandragupta's death in 297 BCE, the Mauryans expanded across North India from the Arabian Sea to the Bay of Bengal, and even consolidated territories past the Vindhya mountain range and into the Deccan region. Eventually, the majority of South India was conquered, with the sole exception of Tamil country. From the historical record, it's not clear whether it was Chandragupta himself or his son Bindusara who was responsible for this southern conquest. Either way, by the time his grandson Ashoka had taken the throne, most of the Indian subcontinent had come under Mauryan imperial authority. Chanakya implemented far-reaching policies that made the empire prosperous and powerful. First, he developed a strong central administration, in stark contrast to the splintered kingdoms of the past. Parallel government structures were developed to help the state administer the unique needs of rural and urban areas separately, and the military was important enough that an entire administrative body was created to supervise it. Commerce was encouraged. It's clear that Chanakya believed in the power of economic competition. For example, the state monopolized weapons manufacturing centers, but allowed private mining operators to bid and compete for the right to supply these weapon centers. Tax breaks spurred economic activity, and the state limited taxes on overburdened citizens. Interestingly, Chanakya wrote that limiting taxes was done out of fear of revolt, not generosity or...
Smart. He is a true politician. He knows, okay, what like in V for Vendetta, the government shouldn't, people shouldn't fear its government. A government should fear its people. That's just the way it is. Just like with when you don't like something, don't buy it. Just like with what's going on in Hollywood, what's going on in the Western gaming industry, the Western entertainment industry as a whole, it's all garbage. There's no point in playing it or enjoying it. Even though every now and then I'll play something and have fun with it just because it's the what you expect. But it's just like, this man knew. This man knew that it's the people that decide. It's a democracy he was creating. The people decide. It's not the ruling class. It's not the government itself. It should be the people. You fear the people because the people are the ones. They are the majority. They are the ones that make all the true decisions that matter. They are the ones that can, just like him, he was nothing but a peasant. He rose up to take down a kingdom and rule it from the shadows. I mean, heck, I need a movie on this guy. Like, that'd be an awesome story to basically watch and just we get Alexander the Great, we get his backstory. We have stories about like the Roman Empire. We have stories even on like the Mongolians. Why not on this guy? There probably is, and I just didn't know about it. But it's just the fact that he knows to fear the people shows that he was, and I hate politicians. I absolutely despise politicians, but he knew that the people deserve, if not respect, fear, because he came from them. It's hard to look at a politician and go like, that person knows where I come from. He literally grew up in that situation. He knew where they come from and knew to be afraid of them, because he is one of them.
or ideological commitment. The Mauryan Empire undertook massive infrastructure projects, such as a road system that connected major urban centers throughout the empire. These projects not only enabled faster troop movements, thus enabling the administration of such a large, centralized empire, but also allowed for easier commerce and internal migration. With Chanakya as prime minister, the Mauryans also implemented a number of protections that would today be considered quite progressive. The state made provisions for certain groups who could not adequately provide for themselves: pregnant women, the elderly, the disabled, and those living in areas struck by environmental catastrophe. In keeping with his progressive nature, Chanakya also believed that people had a right to divorce and remarriage, and that the state should not overly prohibit this practice, not even for widowed spouses. In 285 BCE, once Chanakya grew too old for his position as prime minister, he retired and began to write down his thoughts and learnings. He wrote 3 works: Arthashastra, Chanakya Niti, and the Chanakya Sutra. The Niti and Sutra are general works full of proverbs and other glimpses of earthly wisdom, and were popular in their own right. In fact, references to the Niti were made more than 2,000 years after Chanakya's death. But for now, let's focus on the Arthashastra. What is the Arthashastra exactly? On the surface, the Arthashastra is a comprehensive treatise on economics and statecraft. It's written in the style of an advice book for kings, especially those who have the ambition to become world conquerors. The subject matter of the Arthashastra is varied. It is split into 15 books and over 180 different governance-related topics, from taxation to espionage and resource politics. Everything about the Arthashastra screams pragmatism, even the straightforward writing style, which Chanakya takes a moment to acknowledge. He almost seems to take pride in the fact that he's not a talented writer. Below the surface, the Arthashastra is a guide to securing and maintaining absolute political power. This is seen as both necessary and ethical in the world that Chanakya inhabits, in India akin to medieval Europe, rife with conflict. Chanakya saw the attainment of power as the only path to peace and prosperity, and in fact believed that Artha...
Sadly, I can kind of agree with him, but he was the one that also had the mindset of, again, fearing the peasants, fearing the people. Because if you have someone in charge who has the wealth, who has the power, that doesn't know anything about the people, and above all, like, let's face it, most of them don't care about the people. Oh, I like it. He's someone who deserves the wealth and power. He needed that stuff. He needed to achieve it in order to make lives for everyone better. That is true. There is truth to that. You can't help people if you don't have anything to help them with. Sure, you can talk to like people who devote their lives to like assisting others, but that's like in the minuscule. But in order to do great change, grand change, you need to take over. And what he does takes wealth and power and leads from the shadows. I mean, that's just, I gotta say, I agree with that. I agree with that, but that does sound bad though, because power is a corruptive influence.
Was worth pursuing over immaterial objectives like dharma, kama, and moksha. Chanakya explains that there cannot be a pursuit of dharma without artha. This perspective stands in stark contrast to the religious philosophers of his day. With a stable government, the people are protected from exploitation and are free to pursue dharma, kama, and moksha. For in the absence of the magistrate, the strong will swallow the weak.
Yep.
But under his protection, the weak resist the strong. Unsurprisingly, modern scholarship is divided because it's possible to read Chanakya as both radically amoral and as an ethical realist. But modern scholars are not the only ones struggling with this.
Because that's the thing, I agree with it, as bad as it sounds, because he chose to not let it completely control him, not let it take over who he was. He led, knowing where he came from. And that a lot of people don't do that. A lot of people don't know much about anything. I mean, so again, it's radically amoral or ethically realist. It's It's a bit of both. You have to be in order to actively make a massive amount of change. Again, he was had to have been an absolute narcissist, but he had I guess the word would be the dharma to pursue and doing his best self for the betterment of the people, even though he sought out power and wealth to help and better and empower the people. It is very contradictory, but to me, it makes sense. But it takes a very few people that actually can possibly do that. I mean, I won't lie. I probably wouldn't be able to do that with money. If I had money, I'd be able to get a place to live. I'd be able to actually get a vehicle. I'd be able to, you know, do much better than where I am at. And I wouldn't think twice about, well, after a while, probably getting the necessities, I'd think about family. But to think about the people as a whole, I mean, I'd never go into politics. I find that absolutely abhorrent. I think that's the right word, because it just disgusts me. Politics I've always seen as a shady, sniveling, weasel, rat-infested kind of thing. Just like with lawyers in the U.S. Not all, of course, lawyers are, but most lawyers some lawyers end up becoming politicians just because it's an easy avenue. But yeah, I gotta say, I agree, but at the same time, it's a very small group that could possibly ever do something like that. You have to know exactly who you are to achieve something like that, which is why you can understand why people are being conflicted by it, because there's a very select group of people that could actually achieve something like that for the betterment of people.
There's seemingly never been a historical consensus. In the first half of the 7th century CE, the Sanskrit writer Banabhatta wrote, "Is there anything that is righteous for those whom the science of Chanakya, merciless in its precepts, rich in cruelty, is an authority?" What is clear is that Chanakya was not an outright moralist, nor was he particularly religious. Academic analysis has revealed that the existing arthashastra manuscripts are actually compiled works. The portions attributable to Chanakya are almost entirely lacking a religious or moral quality. The religious portions were added later, many centuries after Chanakya's death, by conservative Brahmins who likely found his perspectives to be problematic.
Of course, religion rewriting history to make it more like that's what happened with like what was it, one of the David sculptures. The Pope was going around with a chisel and chiseling off all the family jewels of all the art pieces there, and then that's where they ended up putting the leaf, I think, that is in front now, that was put on later because it got chiseled off by the Pope. Just changing things.
After all, the Arthashastra has a cynical view of religion. It advocates for rulers to manipulate religion for political purposes.
Yeah.
It also criticizes astrology and fortune-telling as deeply fraudulent and discourages kings from making decisions by reading the stars. The treatise also goes into great lengths on how to conduct espionage. Chanakya recommends the use of state spies for a variety of purposes, both at home and...
You know, I don't know. I like this guy. I can actually understand this person and a lot of the claims he's making. And I'm thinking about it just like, that does sound blasphemous in some cases. Like, a lot of people view the stars as like sacred and things, but I'm thinking about it, it's like one of the biggest jokes in and I'm going from the American perspective. So there's a huge group of people that won't go on a relationship with someone just because they were born under, well, let's say they're in Aries, or they're a Cancer, or they're a Leo, or they're a, just because allegedly they don't get along, when it's not true. Like, you know, sky reading, it's just oh, you were born that month, that's what you are. Because they're not actually looking at the stars, they're just going, what month is this? Oh no, we don't match. I mean, it's some of the dumbest things. But so when I hear like stargazing and things like that, that's where my mind goes. It goes to the dumb people who go like that. It was like, oh no, you were born this month, we can't. You're an Aries, we can't. You're a Taurus, that's disgusting. You're very selfish, narcissistic, you know, whatever generic thing is pasted for each personality type, for each star. Those people that believe that kind of stuff, and when it's not the true star gazing type thing, because there is a difference between, well, the ones who do it for a living in India and the ones who Google a month, which I'm guilty of. Honestly, I'm guilty of. It's just interesting. But yeah, it's one of those things that hearing him say, it's like, that's where my mind goes, and I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't trust those crazy people either. When they're not the real people I'm thinking of. But yeah, you could see how it's very contradictory. But in order to make progress, you have to be, because I've claimed it many times that religion has always been used for political gain. Religion has always been used for warfare. Religion has always been used to manipulate. It's just something that it is. It's just how it goes about. People find it, have access to realize that that's a avenue for wealth and power, and they use it. It has nothing to do with the belief itself. It has to do with the fact that the person can become rich and powerful, which is what he was talking about in the beginning, where he agreed where in order to make a difference, you have to seek wealth and power. And some people use that avenue through religion, which is why I think he's against religion, because that's an avenue to wealth and power just by manipulation. And he's against manipulation. Oh, even though he himself manipulated a king as a puppet. Oh my gosh, this is so confusing. I think I'm conflicted in my feelings here. I'm going to be honest. I so am liking him, but at the same time, it's getting me to question exactly, am I an ethical person? Because there are things I absolutely agree with, but at the same time are, I guess, because I'll say one thing and it's completely contradictory to the other thing I just said, because, well, the people were seeking wealth and power through taking advantage of religion. But then again, religion should be sacred and not be touched, should be left alone and allowed people to view it how they wish to view it. Just leave them be. I'm against that, where people use that as an avenue for power. But here he's having a puppet. He's manipulating a person to get an avenue for. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I'm getting so conflicted here. But at the same time, I agree with a lot of what he's saying, because I understand it. But trying to explain it from my point of view is sounding very hypocritical. Oh my gosh. I'm sorry.
And abroad, gathering information, tricking enemies, generating rumors, assassinations, and more. Ever the amoral pragmatist, Chanakya insists that a king keep track of his own people, and notes that many members of society should be on the state's payroll for this purpose. For example, he directs a king to pay servants and courtesans to spy on nobles in the hopes of discovering sensitive information that could be used for blackmail. He also recommends using the affections of beautiful courtesans to sow discord among one's opponents.
Okay, now that's something I don't agree with. Okay, spies in the political landscape, yes, that'll be a thing. But to find active blackmail, I mean, this is going down the route of politics. So he started out with something I can agree with, and now he's gone the route where I can absolutely say no to. No to all of that. That's that's just wrong. You can't you can't create blackmail on someone. That's just illegal.
Espionage was a consideration too, and Chanakya was rather paranoid. He moved Chandragupta's bedroom every few days to confuse potential assassins. He's also believed to have secretly put small amounts of poison in Chandragupta's food to help build poison immunity. As Chandragupta was not privy to this strategy, he unknowingly shared his food with his pregnant wife, who died. Rushing against the clock, Chanakya ordered that her womb be cut open and the baby was saved. This baby, heir to the throne, was born with a drop of poison having touched his forehead, and so he was named Bindusara, meaning the strength of the drop. The Arthashastra's passages on espionage and war speak to Chanakya's belief that the ends justify the means. This belief is nuanced, however. For example, Chanakya allows kings to use any means necessary to win a war: assassination, trickery, propaganda, and more. However, he recommends fighting in an honorable manner when one has greater strength than the enemy. When equal or weaker to the enemy, he encourages trickery. When the war is won, Chanakya requests that kings treat the conquered humanely. But perhaps the aspect of the arthashastra that is most often cited in recent times is that of foreign policy. Today, Chanakya's views of competitive states as a sort of mandala, and his unemotional explanation as to what states make natural enemies and what states make natural allies, are taught in policy schools throughout the world.
That's actually smart.
Chanakya died in 283 BCE, having guided both Chandragupta Maurya and Bindusara. His legacy is truly impressive. For thousands of years, his vision of governance influenced kings and kingmakers in both South Asia and Southeast Asia. Today, his teachings have even found purchase in business and policy schools in the Western world. Chanakya was a man ahead of his time, greater and more innovative than Machiavelli, to whom he is often compared. And now you know.
Wow. I gotta say, I really like this one. I mean, this was a lot for me to try and unpack because there are things I agree with. It seems like he leaned more into it because it seems like a lot of the stuff he was writing throughout his life. And he wrote one thing about basically seeking wealth and power probably when he was trying to take over the throne, control it from the shadows. And then when he wanted to keep it, he started getting into the espionage, starting to get into the blackmail, starting to get into... And that's just like, again, power corrupts. And he was becoming corrupt and thinking himself right by maintaining the peace. But then again, was he wrong to prevent warfare by having the material over these other politicians who would have tried to take the throne? Does those evil deeds, does one ill turn deserve, what is the term for doing an evil act in order to, what is it? Would you kill one man to save 100 type of thing? That's kind of like the mindset he had. Would he be willing to do the one evil deed to prevent 1,000 of evil acts? Again, that's just, oh my gosh, this one's a landmine for me. Absolutely, because there are things I absolutely agree with, there are things I absolutely can understand, and then there are things that are like he just went too far, he got lost in it. And yeah, I really found this one very, very interesting, as is probably pretty obvious. Oh my gosh, yeah. Thank you all for watching. Let me know what your thoughts are, because this is like a huge can of worms to unpack. There's no way I could sit down. This would have to be like a treatise I'd have to write on why I view this as this way, why this I can agree with, why, because there are so many things which are very contradictory, but at the same time, they kind of make sense. Thank you all for watching. Talk to you next time. Toodles!